Welcome back to Chat Like a Native. Today we're going to be looking at how to ask questions in English like a native speaker.
Right.
And we're really going to deep dive into it, like going beyond just what you learn in your textbook.
Exactly.
I feel like when you're first learning a language,
Yeah.
you kind of focus on the vocabulary.
Yeah.
You focus on the grammar rules.
Mm-hmm.
But asking questions in a natural way is kind of a whole other level.
Absolutely.
There's a skill to it.
I completely agree.
And it's not just about the words that you're using.
No.
It's about how you're using them.
It's like having all the right ingredients, but you don't know how to bake.
Oh.
You know, you've got everything there.
Yeah.
But knowing how to put it all together to actually make something good,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about. Like, what are those little tricks that native speakers do that elevate their speech?
What are some of those things?
Well, let's start with the very basics.
Like,
you know, you've got your yes-no questions.
Okay.
Nice and simple and straightforward.
Yeah.
Those are great for just getting like a confirmation or just to kind of start a conversation.
Right.
But then you've got your why questions.
Right.
You know, your who, what, where, when, why, how.
Yeah.
These are like your investigation tools.
Right.
You can really dig deep with these.
Yeah.
And then you've got tag questions.
Oh, yeah.
Those little things you put on the end of a sentence.
Uh-huh.
It's a nice day, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Just to sort of keep the conversation flowing.
Exactly. So you've got all these different types.
Yeah.
But how do you know when to use which one?
Right.
That's the real question.
And I've got to say, like, I tend to stick to the basic why questions.
Yeah.
You
A
know?
lot of people do.
How can we kind of like branch out and use those other ones more?
Well, think about what you're trying to achieve.
Right.
What's the point of the conversation? If you're just trying to find out, like, basic information,
Right.
you know, like, where's the bathroom or something.
Right.
A simple where's the bathroom is going to do.
Yeah.
But if you're at a networking event
Okay.
and you want to actually start a conversation with somebody, you need something a little more interesting, something a little deeper.
So, like, what, instead of saying, like, what do you do? Which I feel like is
It's classic.
the go-to.
Yeah.
What could you say instead?
Maybe something like, what projects are you working on right now that you're excited about?
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
That gets them talking.
Right.
And tells you a bit more about them.
That's a good point, because, like, if you say, what do you do? They might just say, I'm a lawyer.
Right.
And then that's...
And then where do you go from there?
Right, exactly.
But if they start talking about a project they're excited about, now you've got a conversation.
Yeah, you're in.
Yeah.
So it's like choosing the right tool for the job. But even when I feel like I'm asking the right questions, they don't always sound natural.
Right.
It's like I'm missing some kind of magic ingredient.
It's politeness and intonation. That's the secret sauce.
Okay.
It's not just about the words themselves. It's how you deliver them.
Right.
You know, like the difference between saying,
Yeah.
give me the salt and could you pass the salt, please?
Right.
It's the same request.
Yeah.
But one is way more polite.
Right.
And native speakers, they just do this naturally.
Yeah. And I think it's like the tone of voice as well.
It's intonation.
Yeah.
Hugely important.
Right.
It's the music of your voice.
Uh-huh.
You know, even a simple question like, are you coming? If you just say it flat,
Yeah.
it sounds like a statement.
Right.
But if you go up at the end,
Right.
are you coming?
Yeah.
Now it's a question.
Right.
It's inviting a response.
It sounds more friendly.
Exactly.
Less like an interrogation.
Yeah.
Can we practice?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. How about, do you speak English?
Okay.
Do you speak English?
I can hear the difference.
Right.
It's subtle, but it's there.
But it's important.
Right.
And it takes practice. Just like anything.
Yeah.
You got to train your ear.
Oh, pay
Attention to how native speakers do it. Try to copy them.
So we've talked about different types of questions. We've talked about politeness, intonation. What else do we need to know to like really nail this?
Well, even when you know all that, there are still some common mistakes
Okay.
that even advanced learners make.
Like what?
Sometimes you forget the auxiliary verbs.
Oh, yeah.
You know, instead of saying, are you coming to the party? You might just say, you coming to the party.
Oh, yeah, I do that.
It happens.
It feels more natural somehow.
I know, but it sounds wrong.
Right. It's a dead giveaway.
Yeah, that you're not a native speaker.
What else?
Word order.
Oh.
That can be tricky.
Right.
In English, we invert the subject and the verb when we ask a question. So it's easy to get it mixed up and say, where you going instead of where you going.
Yeah.
That's a common one.
It's hard.
It is hard.
It's like your brain wants to put it in the wrong order.
It does.
Yeah.
But you just have to keep practicing until it becomes natural.
Right.
It's like learning a dance.
Oh.
At first, the steps feel weird.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the smoother it gets.
So you're saying if I practice enough, asking questions will be like second nature.
Absolutely.
Like dancing.
Yeah.
I like that.
And, just like with dancing, it helps to have a partner.
Right.
So don't be afraid to practice with a friend.
Yeah.
Or a language partner.
Okay.
Someone who can help you along the way. So today we've learned about different types of questions.
Yeah.
We've learned about politeness, intonation, avoiding common mistakes. And we've got some great tips for how to keep practicing.
Exactly.
This is fantastic.
We're just getting started, though. We're going to go even deeper in the next part.
Okay.
We'll unlock some real ninja-level techniques that'll take your conversations to a whole new level.
I can't wait.
Get ready to impress those native speakers with your amazing question-asking skills.
I'm excited.
Welcome back to Chat Like a Native. We're going to keep diving deeper into the world of asking questions in English.
Awesome. In the last part, we talked about different types of questions.
Yeah.
And politeness and intonation.
Yeah.
Even common mistakes that people make. Now I'm ready for those ninja-level techniques you promised.
Okay, you asked for it.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about indirect questions.
Ooh, indirect questions.
These are like the velvet gloves of questioning. They're subtle. They're polite. They're perfect for situations where you need to be a little more diplomatic.
Diplomatic questions. I like that.
Yeah. So instead of just coming out and saying what you want to know, you kind of ease into it.
Okay. Can you give me an example?
Sure. Imagine you're at a party.
Okay.
And you meet someone new. And you want to know what they do for a living.
Right.
Instead of saying, what's your job?
Which can be a little bit blunt.
It can be a bit too direct.
Right.
You could say something like, oh, that's interesting. What brings you to this event?
Oh, I see.
It's a much softer approach.
Right.
It gives them the opportunity to tell you as much or as little as they want.
It's like an invitation to share.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rather than an interrogation.
I like it.
Yeah.
Where else can we use these indirect questions?
They're great for making requests.
Okay.
Or expressing opinions without sounding too demanding. Like, if the music's too loud, instead of saying, turn the music down, you could say, would it be possible to turn the music down a bit?
Right. It's less aggressive.
It's a suggestion.
Right. Not an order.
Okay. So indirect questions added to the toolkit.
Definitely.
What else?
Rhetorical questions.
Oh, yeah. Those are fun.
These are questions that you don't actually expect an answer to.
Right. Like, who doesn't love pizza?
Exactly.
You're not really asking for information.
No, you're making a statement or emphasizing a point.
Right.
Or maybe even just trying to be funny.
Yeah.
So they're not really about getting an answer.
So what are they for?
They can add a lot of flavor to your conversations.
Okay.
They can make things more dramatic, more interesting, more engaging.
Give me an example.
Okay. Imagine you saw a movie.
Yeah.
And you didn't like it. You could just say, I didn't like the movie.
Right.
But it's much more impactful to say, what was the director thinking?
Yeah.
It gets your point across.
Yeah.
You're not actually expecting the director to answer.
No, of course not.
Okay.
It's just a way of expressing your opinion.
So it's like you're using questions to create a certain effect.
Exactly.
Like a rhetorical effect.
Yeah, you're in control.
Okay, cool. Good.
And speaking of being in control, let's talk about framing your questions.
Ooh, framing.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
You can actually use your questions to get specific types of responses.
Oh, wow.
Like you're steering the conversation in a certain direction.
How do you do that?
Okay, let's say you need some advice. Instead of just saying, what should I do?
Right.
You could say, what would you do if you were in my shoes?
Oh, that's good.
Right.
Because then they're really thinking about it.
Yeah, they're putting themselves in your position.
Yeah.
And they're giving you a more personal answer.
So it's like you're a conversational architect.
I love that.
You're designing the conversation. You're building something.
That's a good analogy. And just like with architecture, the more you practice, the better you get.
The more elaborate you can make your conversational structures.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it.
This is so cool.
I know, right?
But I have to admit,
Yeah.
I still get nervous sometimes.
I get it.
Especially when I'm talking to native speakers. Mm-hmm. I worry about making mistakes.
It's natural.
Yeah, and like, what if they judge me?
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Everyone makes mistakes.
Even native speakers.
Especially native speakers.
Really?
You'd be surprised how often we mess things up. Even the most fluent people.
Yeah.
They've all stumbled over their words.
Yeah.
They've all said the wrong thing at the wrong time.
So it's okay if I make mistakes?
It's more than okay.
Okay.
It's essential.
Why?
Mistakes are how you learn.
Oh.
Every time you make a mistake, it's an opportunity to grow.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Right. So embrace the mistakes.
Okay.
Learn from them.
And keep practicing.
Exactly.
You know? I think I was putting too much pressure on myself.
Yeah, a lot of learners do that.
To be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more important to just keep talking.
Absolutely.
And learning from my mistakes.
And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
Native speakers are usually happy to help.
They are.
They appreciate that you're making an effort.
Okay, so let's recap.
Okay.
We've talked about indirect questions,
Mm-hmm.
rhetorical questions,
Right.
framing your questions.
Yeah.
And we've learned that it's okay to make mistakes.
More than? Okay.
We should embrace them.
Absolutely.
This is all so helpful.
I'm glad to hear that.
But we're not done yet.
Oh, no.
There's more.
There's one more layer we need to uncover.
Right.
The cultural layer. English is spoken all over the world.
Right.
But different cultures have different ways of communicating.
Yeah.
So in the next part, we're going to talk about how to navigate those cultural nuances.
Okay, I'm ready.
Get ready to go global.
Welcome back to Chat Like a Native. We've been talking all about asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we've covered so much.
We have.
From like basic question types to like really advanced techniques.
Yeah.
But there's one more thing I want to talk about.
Right.
Culture.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Because like English is spoken all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
But what's considered polite in one culture might be totally rude in another.
Exactly. It's like you're dancing with someone, but you're stepping all over their toes because you don't know the steps. You're not familiar with the rhythm.
So how do we avoid those kinds of conversational faux pas?
Well, one of the biggest things to be aware of is formality.
Right.
Some cultures are very formal. Others are more relaxed.
So like, how do you know?
You have to do your research.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to a new country, learn about the customs, the etiquette.
Okay.
For example, in some cultures, it's really important to use titles.
Oh, right.
Like Mr. and M's.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't address someone by their first name.
Right, unless you knew them really well.
Exactly.
And I've noticed that like some cultures are more direct in their communication.
Right.
And others are more indirect.
Absolutely.
And that can really affect how you ask questions.
Huge impact.
So like what kind of questions?
Well, in some cultures, you can ask really personal questions. Like, how old are you? Or how much money do you make?
Right.
But in other cultures,
that would be considered super rude.
Way too personal.
So how do you know?
You have to pay attention to the context and the cues.
Like what kind of cues?
Well, body language is a big one.
Oh.
Facial expressions, a tone of voice.
So if someone seems uncomfortable, maybe back off a little.
Exactly. Like maybe rephrase your question or change the subject.
Right.
And don't be afraid to apologize. If you think you've offended someone.
Good point.
You know it's always better to err on the side of caution.
Right.
And be respectful.
This is so helpful.
I'm glad.
I feel like I'm learning so much.
That's what we're here for.
But it's a lot to remember.
It is. But the good news is you don't have to be perfect.
Oh, right.
Just be aware and be willing to learn.
Yeah.
And most importantly, keep practicing.
Yeah.
The more you talk to people from different cultures, the more you'll pick up on these nuances.
So it's like anything else.
Yeah.
The more you do it, the better you get.
Absolutely.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive.
I think so, too.
Into asking questions in English.
Yeah.
We've covered so much ground.
We have.
And I feel like I have so many new tools to help me sound more...
That's fantastic. And more confident.
Then remember, it's all about practice.
Right.
So get out there and start asking questions. Thanks for joining us on Chat Like a Native.
It's been a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.